What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Block is Hot. We are back, baby. We are back on the grind. We are back to getting this bag. We are back to making videos again for The Block and for the overall community. And in this episode, we're actually going to be talking about an interesting new protocol, or new-ish protocol, called Lending Pond by AcronymDAO. And I actually think this is a really cool protocol and that it actually has a lot of different strategies that you can do depending on your situation. And I felt like it was a valuable tool to bring up to you guys and to kind of get all of this started, all of this YouTube stuff started once again. But without further ado, let's get into it. So what exactly is Lending Pond? Well, guys, Lending Pond is a new application on the Cardano ecosystem that allows us to both lend or borrow our CNFTs in order to either gain interest in the form of ADA or for us to get ADA now and have our CNFTs as collateral for that loan. Now, to kind of simplify that, guys, there are two different things that you can do on this website. You can either lend out your ADA and get an interest rate on that ADA, or what you can do is you can put your CNFT up, people can lend you ADA, so you are borrowing, and you use your own CNFT as collateral in case you don't pay back that loan. Example number one here, if you're trying to lend, Smooth Yeti 4233. This is a guy like me or you that was either short on ADA or they needed some extra money, they needed liquidity, but they didn't necessarily want to sell their CNFTs. So what he's saying here is he says, hey guys, someone please give me 200 ADA right now. And in return, 5 weeks from now, I will give you back 6% interest rate, which ends up being about 12 ADA in this situation. You take 6% times that 200 ADA. And what happens is after 5 weeks, he either pays us that 212 ADA back, or we get his CNFT if he fails to pay that back, if he defaults on it. So it's a pretty cool system here where if you are someone who's trying to get money but not necessarily sell their CNFT, you can get some ADA and you can get some liquidity. And at the same time, if you're someone that's lending out the ADA, you can get some decent returns in a short period of time. And worst case scenario, if they don't pay for it, this is a smart contract and you're gonna get their NFT as a result automatically with no hands touching it whatsoever. To just give another example when it comes to the lending, we have another guy trying to lend out Clay Nation 1601. He wants 2,900 ADA and he's only asking for that ADA for 1 week, which means he's going to pay back that 2,900 ADA plus that 15.5% interest rate within 1 week of you giving him that ADA. And if he doesn't pay you back that 2,900 plus that 15.5%, then you get to keep the CNFT, or in this situation, Clay Nation 1601. Now, let's say you don't really have a ton of ADA to lend out, and that's not really your thing. You're not really trying to make that small interest rate. Well, what you can do instead is you can actually borrow ADA using your CNFTs, and all you have to do is pay a little bit of interest in order to get front-loaded that ADA. So for example, guys, I can look at all my different CNFTs here when I click the borrow button. And then what I can do is I can click on the specific CNFT that I want to use as collateral for my loan. So if for whatever reason I don't pay back this loan in time, they are going to get this CNFT as a result. So for example, I can click on Smooth Yeti 5801, and this is where I have to do the terms and conditions of this deal. So the first thing that we have to decide here is how long we want before we have to pay that ADA back. So for example, I could do 2 days, I could do 1 week, I could do 2 weeks, I could do 3 weeks, all the way up to 5 weeks. The shorter amount of time you do, the more lucrative it is for people that are lending you the ADA. So if I'm only doing 2 days and I have to pay this back in 2 days, then someone with a bunch of ADA that's willing to basically lend out their ADA is a lot more likely to do that versus 5 weeks. But then when it comes to our side of things, why am I only gonna want 2 days to pay this back? It kind of defeats the purpose unless you're just trying to get some quick liquid in order to get into a mint. So in this situation, guys, I'm just going to choose something in the middle, such as 3 weeks. The next thing you have to decide is how much ADA you want. Now, this is a very tricky one, guys. You want to make sure that's enough ADA to where if you for whatever reason couldn't pay the loan, you're not crying yourself to sleep. Because for example, if this Smooth Yeti was worth 500 and I was wanting a loan for 300, then I better pay that thing back because I'll take a 200 ADA L if I don't. But at the same time, you don't want to put it too high where the flip side happens, where it's like, oh, I don't want to lend this guy, 500 ADA for this Smooth Yeti if it's only worth 300, because God forbid if he doesn't pay me back, regardless of how high the interest rate is, I'm going to be stuck with something that's worth 300 that I paid 500 for. So this is once again something that you have to balance a lot, and it really just depends how long the duration is, what the loan value is, what you're really offering up, and the different interest rate you're providing. A lot of the different interest rates that I've been seeing, guys, have been anywhere from 5 to 10%. So depending on how long you want things and how much ADA, you can kind of mess around with that interest rate. Another thing that you have to realize here, guys, is that Lending Pond actually takes a 2% fee. They take a 1% fee when you actually get your loan. So in this situation, 1% of 300 would be 3 ADA to whoever is borrowing, and they also take a 1% fee to whoever is lending it as well. So you have to take that into consideration when you try to calculate everything. Now that you guys have an overall idea of what exactly this lending protocol is, why exactly should you use this? Why exactly should you lend? Why exactly should you borrow? And there's really 4 different strategies or situations, in my opinion, where this is actually useful. And it really comes into play when it comes to generating a passive income, as well as being an amazing tool for those that are into flipping or into swing trading. Strategy number 1, guys, is literally just making a ton of passive income loaning out your ADA. There's definitely a lot of people out there with a ton of ADA that's just kind of sitting in your wallet. And yes, you can get that 5% staking reward through the course of these different epochs. But the truth of the matter is, guys, is that doesn't really get the juices flowing for me. And one of the reasons I really like CNFTs is I'm super bullish on ADA, and I don't want to take my money out of ADA, but I'm also tired of ADA not doing anything. So it's like, okay, how can I do different things in this ecosystem to make my ADA work for me more and to get a higher interest rate on my ADA? And one of the best options that I've been able to find, really, if you just want to stick with ADA and not get into all these different DeFi protocols where there's a bunch of impermanent loss right now, is actually loaning these different CNFTs. I mean, look at this here, guys. Smooth Yeti 1067. 1 week, 8%, 250 ADA. So right now I can give this dude 250 ADA, and in 1 week, he's gonna give me an 8% return on that loan. Or in this case, really 7%, because there is that 1% fee that does go to Lending Pond. Now that's ridiculous, guys. A lot of people in the stock world and all of this traditional investment stuff are happy to get anywhere from 8 to 10% in the S&P 500 index over the course of the year, and there's a lot more risk with that, as you see over the past 6 months, where so much of the stock market and even crypto market has really been getting liquidated. A lot of people have really been selling and really been panicking. So the fact that in 1 week I can get the same return as the S&P 500 index, while at the same time having an asset that is worth 250 ADA, worst case if he doesn't pay for it, is absolutely nuts. Now there's only 2 things that you have to worry about when you do this, guys. Thing number 1 is that this asset can go down a lot in value over the duration of the loan. So for example, maybe this Ape Nation right now is worth 80 ADA, but is it going to be worth 80 ADA in 5 weeks? Who knows? That's why it's much more lucrative to get into these shorter term investments, because there's probably going to be a lot less price movement over the course of a week than over the course of 5 weeks. So worst case scenario, if you got something over here where you're loaning out 80 ADA over 5 weeks, maybe if this drops down to 40 ADA, when 5 weeks are up, he might not pay back that ADA, because not only would he have to pay back 80 ADA, he'd also have to pay that interest rate. And then on top of that, this might not even be worth 40 ADA when that time comes. So that's a situation you have to watch out for. And that's why you really have to look up the value of the CNFT before you take a loan on it, to make sure that it is valuable and that there is some buffer room, or you go for something that really has a lot smaller of a duration. The second thing that you have to worry about, guys, is that you can't be so caught up with the interest interest rate as well as the time duration to the point that you completely neglect how valuable that actual CNFT is. And this site actually helps you out a little bit, and they have 3 different color cards depending on how risky they think that borrow or that lending is. So green is obviously going to be the least risky. You have yellow, which is going to be a little bit more risky, and then you have red. And I want to bring up this Chilled Kong 7754 as the prime example of this rule. Yes, it's a 2-day window, which is very, very short, so you're going to get your money back. Yes, it's 14%, which is very high. Yes, 14% times 3,300 ADA, getting that back in 2 days is very awesome. But let's be honest, guys, this is a floor Kong at best. I'm not a huge fan of this Kong for whatever reason, and this guy in particular is wanting 3,300 ADA. This Kong is worth maybe 2,400 ADA. And that's why it's really important, guys, that before you lend out any of this ADA, that you double check to make sure that that NFT is going to cover your principal or your initial investment in the worst situation possible if they don't pay back that loan. Because I guarantee it, guys, this guy is hoping that he can lure someone in here and have someone loan him 3,300 ADA, and he's not going to pay that back. And now he just sold a floor Kong, or a Kong worth around 2,400 ADA. Now he just sold that for 3,300 ADA, and he took a 1% fee from lending pond rather than that royalty fee on the secondary market, which is JPEG store. So be very careful about that if you're trying to lend money out. The second strategy here has to do with borrowing, and it has to do with swing trading as well as hedging your investment. So what do I mean by this, guys? Well, if you've watched my channel, you'll know by now that catalyst news can have a huge impact on price, and a lot of times you can predict whether or not something is going to go up or down based on the news. One of the prime examples of this, guys, was Ape Society. We knew that these cabins were going to release. We knew that this was going to be a catalyst event. And what happened is that these Ape Societies went from about 1,800 ADA all the way up to 3,000 ADA, leading up to that snapshot of those cabins. And then what happened, guys, is immediately after, it went from 3,000 ADA all the way down to 2,000 ADA. Instead of selling that Ape Society at 3,000 ADA and then, basically taking profit, waiting for it to go down to 2,000 ADA, and then buying it again at 2,000 ADA, and then hoping it goes up again, we could have actually used Lending Pond as a way to short that NFT. And what do I mean by this? Well, guys, if you aren't familiar with shorting, it essentially means that you're selling an asset now, hoping that in the nearby future that asset is worth less so that you can buy it back and kind of like repay the brokerage or whatever the case is. So for example, let's say GameStop was at $400 a share. I thought GameStop was going to go down, so I told the brokerage, hey man, give me 1 share of GameStop right now. I'm going to sell it at $400, but I promise by the end of the day, I'm going to buy 1 share of GameStop again, and I'm going to pay that back to you guys. And they're like, okay, dude. So if that share of GameStop went from 400 to 300, I would buy that back at 300 by the end of the day. I would give that 1 share of GameStop back to the brokerage, and now they just made now I just made $100. But the reverse can also happen, where let's just say, GameStop was 400 and then it went to 500. Now I have to buy it back at 500, and now I took a $100 loss. And we've never really been able to short the whole NFT space, but there's actually this kind of redneck version way of doing it with Lending Pond now. Now let me give you an example of this, guys, and why I think this is actually a better approach to kind of short rather than, simply sell your NFT. Ape Society was 1,800. We knew the metaverse cabins were going to come out. We knew this was a catalyst event. We knew that Ape Society was going to go up as a result, right? Went from 1,800 to 3,000. Now, traditionally, what I would do is I would sell my Ape Society for 3,000, and then I would look for a rebuy entry, which was about 2,000 ADA in this situation, right? And what would happen is I would take a 7% hit on that. And the reason is there's a 5% royalty as well as a 2% fee to JPEG store. And in the situation where for whatever reason these actually didn't go down, now all of a sudden I sold my Ape Society, and now I can't rebuy that ape for the price that I originally sold it for because it went up in price. And that doesn't really happen too often, but that's not a situation you like finding yourself in, and it does happen sometimes. My whole hypothesis here, and what I think is actually a better move if you can pull it off, is that instead of selling this at 3,000 ADA and taking that 7% hit with this project, and by the way, guys, there are projects with way higher royalties, right? Like 8 to 10%. We instead go to Lending Pond and we take a 3,000 ADA loan on our Ape Society. And what we do is we do like a 1 week or time frame, something short, and we offer like a 5% interest rate at that 3,000 ADA. Now, what will happen is one of two things. Either the Ape Society does go down a lot, which is our whole reasoning, our whole short of this Ape Society, because we think there's going to be a sell-off after this major news has happened. Well, we just don't pay it back. And then they keep our ape. But guess what, guys? Guess what we just avoided? We just avoided 5% in royalties and 2% to JPEG Store. So we really only spent here 1% fees on Lending Pond. So in this situation, we still got our ADA right away instead of selling it. And then we actually saved a lot of money on the fees. And then we'll have that ADA to basically rebuy in whatever we want to do. The second situation that can happen here is that we can actually be wrong about it going down. And it can actually go up instead. And in this situation, at least we'll have the ability to be able to pay off our Ape Society and be able to keep that in the random situation if the market, if they just went crazy afterwards, like if they announced something ridiculous afterwards, we'd at least be able to keep our ape. But yes, we would have that 5% interest that we would have to repay if it calculated to whether or not it was worth it. So the cool thing with doing this is it gives you a little bit more freedom. It gives you a lot more versatility in your swing trades because it gives you the option to be able to stay in or get out, and it gives you a longer time frame to see what actually happens after that major news event occurred. A great example of where you could have used this, guys, is when these chilled Kongs went crazy when they announced these trippy mushrooms and more details about them. This was another situation where I knew that announcement was coming soon, and I told everyone less than a month ago to buy these up at around 600 ADA, and I hope a couple people followed that play because you'd be up a decent amount now in the last month. And what happened, guys, is as soon as they announced those trippy shrooms, like we knew was going to happen, these ran all the way up to about 1,700 to 1,800 ADA, and then they had a pullback down to about 1,400 to 1,300 ADA. And this would have been a perfect situation as to when it ran to 1,700 ADA for us to get a quick loan on that and be able to basically cash in if we wanted to, while still having the option to hold that CNFT if it continued to run. In this situation, it would have saved me a ton of money because I actually sold 3 of my chilled Kongs around 1,500 ADA, whereas if I had another week to see how the market reacted, this could have ran all the way up to 2,355 ADA. So yes, I might have ended up spending 5% for that 1 week or for that 1 week time period, but guys, 1,500 times 0.05 is only 75. 75 times 3 is 225. I would have only had to pay 225 ADA to give myself 2 more weeks in this swing trade to see which direction this would go. And I know a lot of situations this isn't really applicable because a lot of times it isn't a chilled Kong situation. But chilled Kong was really one of those situations which I wasn't really sure whether or not it would go up or down, but I wanted to be able to lock in profits. In this situation, I would have been able to lock in those profits at that 1,500 or at that 1,600 price, save the royalties, which is 3% plus the 2% on JPEG Store, and then also have that additional time in case it continued to run and I decided to pay back that loan. That 225 ADA that I would have had to pay back literally would have netted me an additional 2,400 ADA for the cost of just 225. So this is definitely a situation, guys, which is going to occur where you just don't know which direction things are going to go, but you don't want to be caught with your pants down and not taking profit, but you also don't want to shoot yourself if things just continue to run. And another situation of this is Clay Nation pitches. I had no idea where this was going to go, guys. This was such a random, unique project. All I knew is I got lucky as hell, got a lot of large plots, and I wanted to take profits, and I didn't want the plots to go from 2,000 to 1,000. So I wanted to take that profit. profit. But guess what, guys? Those large Clay Nation pitches could have all of a sudden gone to 3,000 ADA, and I would have had to bite 1,000 ADA profit for every single one that I sold, which is actually exactly what happened to me. But if I borrowed it instead, if I got that 2,000 ADA instead, I would have at least had the option to keep it and repay it, and that way be able to profit much larger. And the only negative was, yes, I had that little bit of interest rate that I had to pay back. The last strategy that I want to bring up here, guys, is the ability to make more money than the cost of your interest rate. So for example, dead pixels have been going crazy. I've been holding my dead pixel. It's honestly the one thing that I've really been holding. For whatever reason, I haven't sold this guy, but now it's worth 4,000 ADA, right? And that's a decent amount of ADA. And right now, potentially, I could get a loan for the course of 1 month, and I could get that 4,000 ADA. And maybe I only have to pay a 5% interest rate. And maybe I drop this down to 3,000 ADA and I know that I'm going to pay this back. And now it's more lucrative and now people are more willing to give me that ADA. But think about it, guys. If I get 3,000 ADA right now, I could probably, in my opinion, and honestly, factually, because I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of all my trades, I factually have been making much more than 5% over the course of 4 weeks. So if I was low on ADA right now, which I'm not really low on ADA right now, I could take out this 3,000 ADA and I could make that work for me and I could make more money than this interest rate. My interest rate, my cost for doing this, guys, is 3,000 times 0.05. So my fee is $150 to be able to play with 3,000 ADA for 4 weeks. In my opinion, I can personally make more than that over the course of 1 month than I would simply just having that NFT in my wallet. And the great thing is, guys, is I'm very bullish on dead pixels and I don't want to sell my dead pixel. So I literally get to keep my dead pixel while at the same time getting ADA to keep playing with in the market and to double that ADA, to triple that ADA, to get 50% on that ADA. Even if I were only to get 10 to 20% on this 3,000 ADA within this 4-week time period, that would still be a huge dub and it would still be worth it if I didn't have a lot of ADA liquid. But because I have enough ADA liquid right now where I'm kind of buying whatever I want to buy anyways, it doesn't really make sense for me to do this. But once again, if I'm low on ADA, I have 500 ADA, and I know there's some good flips coming up. I know there's some good swing trades coming up. I know there's some big opportunities coming up. I know there are some things that are really undervalued. I see some snipes in the market. Then this would be a no-brainer situation of me being able to leverage myself and be able to leverage my NFTs more, and for me to be able to get more capital, and for me to be able to snowball that more. But just realize, guys, that you don't want to over leverage to the point where all of a sudden the market takes a big hit and now all of a sudden you can't pay your CNFT back because now all of a sudden you don't have the ADA, or you made a really bad decision, or all of a sudden, you know, all of these different things can happen. But just keep that in mind. Like if I was short on ADA right now and I was confident in my ability and I knew there were some crazy opportunities coming up, this is what I would be doing, because you can literally make way more money the more money you have. Now that pretty much sums up the 3 big strategies that I have with this lending, borrowing application protocol. It's honestly pretty cracked, guys. The ability to be able to basically over leverage your ADA and be able to have your ADA work for you more and at that low interest rate, for you to be able to hedge, a certain NFT in a swing trade while not being able to sell it and kind of giving a little bit more time to see where things move, and for you to save on those fees as well. And then also having a way to lend out ADA and get decent interest rates. Like, it's honestly a super cool protocol, and I'm surprised not a lot of people know about it. One thing that I do want to bring up here, guys, is there's like this little promo code section, and supposedly you can put block in and get a discount. Like, I was in California when the dude had messaged me from this. I was actually going to make a video about this anyways, but he asked if I wanted to have a promo code on this, and I said sure. And he said, okay, the promo code's block, but I don't know if I've even set that up yet. So maybe try that and see if it gives you a discount. If not, I'm going to talk to them and see if I can set this up. But either way, I was going to make a video on this because I actually really like this protocol. And even though I haven't used it yet, it's very intuitive, and I'm definitely going to be using it in the future for those different key times. Now, there's 2 other things that I want to bring up here, guys. I have 2 major announcements for the Block channel. Announcement number 1 is, it's kind of good news and bad news. I'm going to do bad news first. Announcement number 1, guys, is that while I was in California, I realized that I don't really want to do this YouTube thing anymore. It was kind of like a sad hit. But I was like, yeah, man, there just hasn't, like, it really hasn't been growing as much as I was anticipated. It takes a lot of time out of my day. And unfortunately, guys, this is going to be the last video that I make. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Now, the second announcement, which is the good news, is that announcement number 1 was complete BS. I'm back, baby. I'm feeling better than ever. I'm not feeling burnt out right now. I was feeling a little bit burnt out. I had a great time in California. I was able to hang out with my friend, do some awesome hikes, do rock climbing. We went to Big Sur. I mean, had some amazing food. It was just a fun time. And I am glad to be back. I'm glad to be making videos again. I hope you guys learned something from this. I hope I tricked a couple of you guys and had a couple of you guys freak out. But yeah, there's exciting stuff coming this month too. Like, there's exciting stuff. I've been teasing a little bit that I've been making my own project, and it's something that I've been working on for a really long time with my sister and a couple other people. And I'm excited to announce that soon because I think a lot of you guys are really gonna like it and are really gonna like the way things are going to be done. But yeah, more information coming soon. With that being said though, guys, I hope everyone has an awesome day and I'll see you tomorrow for the CNFT market update.